It may not seem like it at first glance, but I really believe that these readings are among the most challenging in all of the scriptures, because in their own way, each talks about mercy always defeats what is fair, or how we would interpret what is just. Mercy is always greater. And I don't think we buy that for a minute. Certainly not on a world scale do we truly believe that mercy is better than revenge. And even in our own families and workplaces and neighborhoods, we find it so difficult often to be people of mercy. We are going to get even rather than forgive. The extreme example, of course, would be when someone suffers horrific violence to someone that they love. And without getting into a whole discussion of capital punishment, studies have shown that families who witness the execution of a criminal that took the life of a loved one, 5 years later are still angry and still can't sleep through the night. Whereas those rare individuals who have gone to a prison and forgiven the criminal, forgiven the perpetrator, sleep like a baby. I have never suffered that kind of violence against anyone that I love. And so I'm not sure how I would respond to that. And it's an extreme example, of course, but mercy always triumphs over revenge. And so in the gospel, Jesus tells Nicodemus he will be lifted up. And when he is on the cross and sees humanity stretched before him, he says, "Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing." And the bystanders, those handful of persons that loved him, might have been stunned at those words, that they should be forgiven. I don't think there's anyone in my life really right at the moment that I haven't forgiven. And I'm not bragging about being holier than thou. It's just, I think that maybe no one has hurt me that deeply that it's been impossible to forgive. I did have an interesting experience recently, though. When I was in high school, there was a classmate that couldn't stand me. And he picked on me and teased me, and he would do all kinds of goofy things, like right before I sat down on my desk chair, he'd put a thumbtack there, and I'd sit on it, and then I'd go, "Ah!" And then I'd get the demerit because I was making noise in class. And lots of other things. Well, I was on call at the hospital one night, and lo and behold, who was the patient? But my good friend, not. The first words out of his mouth after a little awkward silence were, "Have you forgiven me yet?" I was such a jerk. And I said, "Oh, there are a lot of worse jerks in the world than you." I said that on a scale from 1 to 10, what you did was probably a 2. It was not, the end of the world. So I really, I've had experiences like that, but at the moment, I don't feel like there's anyone that I've not forgiven. But the opposite side of the coin, there are lots of people who haven't forgiven me for hurt that I've caused. And most of the hurt that I've caused has been with my mouth, saying nasty things, obnoxious things, sassy things, and just embarrassing people by trying to be funny or just being rude or the devil made me do it, whatever, just saying things that are inappropriate. And every time I do it, I say to myself, how could that happen? What is wrong with you? So just the other day, at a funeral lunch, no less, there's a young lady there wearing a dress with bright yellow flowers on it. And I said to her, I want to thank you for occasioning for me some wonderfully warm and great memories. And she says, what's that? And I said to her, my grandmother had a shower curtain that looked just like your dress. Well, she burst into laughter, thanks be to God, and said to me, I can't believe it. My husband said the same thing when I brought it home from the store. I held it up and he said, oh, a new shower curtain. And I can't believe I keep doing that. It's like, are you ever going to learn your lesson? Some people get over it, some people don't get over it. Some people write a letter to the bishop. I have a stack of sassy things that I've said in my file at the Chancery office. What is wrong with me? Dave Beaudry, last year for my birthday, gave me coffee filters. He said, for my friend who has no filter, who has never had an unspoken thought. So there are several people, and I hope nobody here, that I have insulted and hurt and haven't talked to me in years. But the point is, it's painful to live in that place where mercy doesn't seem to have a chance. Where there is no mercy, there's no inner peace, there's no deep joy. And everyone here surely has an example or two of what that means and what that's like. In the first reading this morning, Cyrus, the new king of Persia, comes to rule, and he lets the Jews who are in captivity in Babylon go back to their homeland. He wasn't a believer. He had no clue who the God of Israel was. He didn't perhaps believe in a God. He certainly didn't know that God was working through him. But mercy prevailed. God can use unusual circumstances for us to get the message. And so let us pray this morning that we can be open to whomever or whatever God sends our way to motivate us to be people of mercy. And then we can continue our Lenten journey with all those burdens lifted from our hearts, replacing the burdens with peace and joy.